Okay, so I got this comment on my channel yesterday, and I actually wanted to run this scenario that this gentleman is playing out here, right? Which is, I'm not buying until I get a 7,000 square foot, 6-bed, 5-bath for 750K in Langley. I'll wait. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. 2-bed, 2-bath, 800 square foot condo should be going for 150 to 250K max. I'm not Delulu. The people selling matchbox boxes for close to 500K are Delulu in an economy where average household income is less than 100K. They're the Delulus. So I'm actually going to play this scenario out. What would it take to get a 800 square foot 2-bedroom in Langley to go down to 250 grand? And I want to start off this video by talking about intrinsic value. So I always like to go back to Meta because this was one of the most interesting things that has happened, right? So Meta back in November of 2022 was trading around $90. And I remember this very well because I was buying it back then. And at this time, it was trading at like an 8 PE ratio, which is like a 8 times price to income ratio. So the price it's trading at is 8 times higher than the amount of money that they earn, basically, right? And Meta, when we talk about intrinsic value, depending on what the economy is doing, typically trades anywhere from somewhere in like the high 20s. It's like pretty typical for Meta, right? So the intrinsic value of Meta was probably 3 to 4 times higher than this $90. It would have been, if you times the price by, 3, you would have been at a 24 times price to income ratio, and Meta stock should have been about $270 at this time, right? So although it was worth a lot more than $90, it still got sold off so bad that it was trading below what it's actually worth, right? So when we talk about real estate, a lot of people will talk about, the cost to build is this. So the price will never trade below that because you can't replace that home for, that cost to build. And I don't fully subscribe to that because, again, you will see sometimes financial markets get severely oversold. So although it may cost, say, 500 grand to build this unit, theoretically, it's not impossible for it to be trading at $300,000. But what would actually need to happen to get it there? So let's take this 2-bedroom example in Langley. Currently, right now, an 800 square foot 2-bed is selling anywhere. Let's just call it 600,000. Sometimes they could be 650, they could be 580, depending on where it's located and what AC and upgrades and level of finishing and all these stuff. But let's just call it $600,000. Okay. I just called a buddy of mine who's deep into the development space, knows his numbers on the back of his hand. And I was like, hey, what is the rough cost of land in any given wood frame project in Langley or Surrey right now? And he told me it's about 8%. So of the entire cost of a project, maybe 8 to 10% of it will actually be land for wood frame condos in Langley, Surrey, right? So we have a $600,000 condo. Let's just say the developer gets the land for free, literally free, right? That condo is still going to sell for, what is that? About $540,000. Now, some of that, again, is like realtor fees. The developer needs to make some money, blah, 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 right? So let's knock off another $40,000. Now we're at 500K. We need to get to 250K to satisfy this guy's comment. So what needs to happen? Now, again, even if the land is free, it still costs 500K to build this condo. But like I said before, even though that is, the intrinsic value of real estate, I would say, although intrinsic value is very hard to get to because although that's what the cost to build is, there's so many other factors, societal trends, immigration, inflation, interest rates, and everything in between. But let's just call that the intrinsic value. To get this condo from now 500 grand, where the developer is probably losing money, to 250K, you don't just need a correction or bad things to happen. You're talking about an apocalyptic scenario. You're talking about immigration has to go negative. And not only that, a bunch of people who live in Langley probably just need to straight up die, right? Like that's what we're talking about here. You need interest rates to go to 30%. You need the US Army invading specifically Langley, and then the Canadian troops setting up a barracks in that Cactus Club and unloading fully automatic weapons at the Americans out the window at Cactus Club. You need tanks driving down 200th Street. You probably need a nuke to drop somewhere to ruin our air quality and fresh water. You need like every single thing that could possibly go 10 out of 10 wrong to go wrong. Now, I'm not saying that that's impossible, right? Everything is in the cards, right? And that's why, I'm not one of these guys that'll say a crash is going to 100% happen, because it might not. Anything is possible. But I do want to show you something that's baked into universal law. If you believe that condos in Langley should be 250 grand or could be 250 grand and that scenario is in the cards, well, then there also has to be an opposing scenario that's an exact opposite, right? Because the law of polarity is knowing nothing is singular. Everything is one made up of two parts, polarities, such as positive and negative. Once you begin to understand this, you realize that one cannot work without the other, and in order to gain one, you must accept both. The good thing is, no matter what the circumstances, there's always a positive, even in situations where you can't see it, it is there. Right? So as an example, we know what everything is in the universe because we know what it's not. I know this desk is wood because it's not concrete. I'm happy because I'm not sad. That's a tree because it's not a branch or it's not a bush, whatever, right? Everything has an opposite. So if you believe that condos in Langley could be 250K, well, it's also likely that they could be $900,000, right? Both of those polarities have to exist. And here's the thing, right? In Canada, I know everybody hates Canada right now, and Canada is pretty shit right now when we compare it to what Canada used to be. But Canada is still always, our real estate here is still always going to be expensive in comparison to other areas across the globe. And the reason why is we have fresh water, clean air, and we also have a very educated population, right? I just saw this article the other day. Maybe this isn't exactly it. You can search it up, but it was something along the lines of 56% of people in Philadelphia don't know how to read. It was or they can't read above a second grade level or something along the lines of that. Okay. That is not the case here. And Philadelphia is a large metropolitan city located in one of the most powerful economies in the entire world. And I'm pretty sure that their housing prices aren't very cheap either. So if that's Philadelphia, well, what about all these other places like the Middle East and places in Europe and all these places, right? When you start to add everything up, even if, we were having a very tough time economically here in Canada, the real estate here is probably still always going to be at a higher valuation than most places across the globe, just because we have very good living conditions. Another thing that we have is mild weather, right? For example, in Montgomery, Alabama, right? The crime rate there is ridiculous. If you're the wrong skin color and you go down the wrong block, you can be killed just for that alone. And their weather is so humid that the homes there actually rot, right? So you can go buy a detached home in Montgomery, Alabama for 70 grand. That's because they don't have a lot of the things just inherently like we have, it's not very dangerous here. The, weather is mild, so it doesn't destroy your home, clean, fresh air, fresh water, and all these things. So what I'm saying is even in the worst event, the economy was completely trash. Most people, this would still be one of the, better locations to live in the world, economy aside. So when you're talking about a $250,000 condo in Langley, the only way I see that happening is if everything I just mentioned gets completely destroyed. And the only way that would happen would be some type of apocalyptic war scenario that would cause all of those things to happen. But anyways, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think would have to happen to see a $250,000 two-bedroom condo in Langley? Drop a comment down below. If you want to chat with me about buying or selling in the Fraser Valley, you can book a call with me using the link in the description. I'm that Agent Kelly, and I'm making moves to move you. Peace.